The 2020 Judicial Candidates Forums are made possible by a partnership between UNC-TV and the North Carolina Bar Association.
Reuben Young and Jeff Carpenter are vying for seat 7 on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Both gentlemen are in the studio for a conversation about that race. Thank you so much for being here with me for this conversation. Jeff, by the coin flip, you get the first word, which for voters, so many don't know they're appellate court judges or the candidates for office. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what's your background?
So I'm Jeff Carpenter. I'm from Union County. Who am I? I am a Christian.
Okay.
I consider myself a conservative. I'm the loving husband to my wife of 24 years, a proud father to a 14-year-old, son of a plumber and electrician. Mom was an administrative assistant, and grew up blue collar. Went to the Anson County Public School System, got my Bachelor of Arts in political science from UNC at Charlotte. I was on the highway patrol for 6 years following undergrad, and then went back to law school at Campbell University and got my law degree. And I was a litigation attorney for 13 years in private practice, and I was elected to Superior Court in November of 2016. That's where I currently serve as Superior Court judge in Union County.
And Mr. Young, tell us about yourself, your background, career.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for the opportunity
You're
to
welcome.
be here. I think this is a great opportunity for voters to learn more about myself and Judge Carpenter. I am the son of a minister. I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. At the age of 13, my father moved to Raleigh, pastored a church there for about 16 years. So I went to junior high school and high school in Raleigh. After I finished high school, I went to Howard University, undergrad, came back to North Carolina, went to North Carolina Central University, where I met my wife, who I've been married to for 33 years. We moved to Austin, Texas. There we both practiced. I was a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and a civil practitioner. In 1995, we moved back after the birth of our 2 sons. We moved back to North Carolina, and I represented the Department of Crime Control and Public Safety through the Department of Justice in both state and federal court. In 2000, I moved over as the deputy legal counsel for the governor, and then his chief legal counsel for the other 6 years remaining on his term. At the end of that term, I was appointed by Governor Perdue as the secretary of the Department of Crime Control and Public Safety, and became the first secretary of the Department of Public Safety, which is the consolidated department now. And at the end of her term, I was appointed as a special Superior Court judge and traveled around the state hearing felony cases, primarily, and civil cases as well. At the end of that 5-year term, I went back to the department and served as interim Chief Deputy Secretary of Adult Corrections and Juvenile Justice, and then was appointed to the Court of Appeals by Governor Cooper in April, took the seat in May, so I've been on the court for about 15 months now.
You know, the Court of Appeals is hearing from you candidates, I'm not a judge, very process-driven, very mechanical, a lot of hard work, grind work. Looking back all those years of experience in public, private sector, how has it shaped you in your behavior and your approach to your service so far as an appellate judge?
Well, I think, you know, being able to have done the things that I have been able to do during the course of my life it's been a blessing, because it's helped me in my perspective in terms of how I address people, how I deal with them, how I respect their cases and who they are. Look, at the end of the day, every case, whether it comes up in front of Superior Court or whether it comes up in the Court of Appeals, there is a person behind that case. And so what judges have to understand, and my philosophy is that we have to accept people where they are and not where we want them to be, because all of us come from different places and travel different journeys. And we have to respect the litigants and the parties that come before us, and we have to make sure that we give them an opportunity for their cases to be heard and for there to be a fair application of the law.
Mr. Carpenter, Highway Patrol Service, public schools, a rural county. I guess it's still rural in Union County. It's a big city down there.
I grew up in Anson County,
Anson County.
Very rural, economically depressed county.
How does that shape you as a judge?
Well, I grew up blue collar. As a judge, what the folks see in court with me is the same person that they see if they were to see me in the grocery store. I believe that judges should be genuine and authentic. I don't put on a show. But I also believe from my background that everyone deserves to be treated the same under the law. Doesn't matter where you come from. Whether you come from Anson County, an economically depressed county, or from the economic juggernaut that is Charlotte. I mean, you know, or Raleigh or the Research Triangle Park. Everyone deserves to be treated the same under the law, and I think that's, you know, we talk about fair. What's fair? And fair is determined by your definition of the term. What I believe is fair is everyone being treated the same under the law.
What is fair and what is impartial when voters clearly look for party affiliation for everything now from president, governor, down to judges and justices?
Well, you know, fair, just like I said, fair is a unique term because most folks see fair from their perspective. And it's hard to put an objective definition on that. My objective definition is everyone being treated the same under the law. That's fair. If everyone has the same position to play from once they enter the game, that's fair in my book. But if you make decisions driven by emotion, then what's fair is dependent upon your perspective as to those facts. That's why the law, in my opinion, should be unemotional. It should be applied as it's written and not involve emotion in decision making.
Mr. Young, what's your approach on that impartiality and fairness when it comes to being a judge, when in your past life and past jobs you've worked for administrations?
Yeah, I think it is. I agree to the extent that I think that fair, from my estimation, is that there is a level playing field for all participants. So when you come into the courtroom, you want to know that the judge or judges who are hearing your case, number one, are going to hear it. They're going to allow you to make your case. And then number two, that they're going to apply the law fairly, not just to you, but to anyone else that may be in the courtroom that may be a party. I think lawyers, at the end of the day, I mean, all of us want to win and all of us want to prevail. But at the end of the day, I think what lawyers really want and what I think is a good day's work is if a lawyer comes into my courtroom as a judge and says, I may not have prevailed, but you heard my case. You gave me an opportunity and you were fair. And that is the litmus test, if you will, I think, for a good judge.
How's this coronavirus affecting court operations? A fair hearing could be, I guess, digital now?
It could.
So,
yes, it could.
Have we had to change the rules? If I'm a citizen coming up with my attorney to you, what's different now with COVID? Where do you see it going in this decade?
Well, look, I don't think that this is necessarily the new normal. I do think that once we get past the issues with this pandemic, we'll return to where we were, but it's going to take us some time to do that. In the meantime, folks who are arguing in front of the Court of Appeals are able to do that by WebEx, if you will, mm-hmm. and a lot of people are familiar with Zoom, and WebEx is comparable, but for purposes of argument, you have everyone calling in, if you will, over the internet, but the only folks who are actually participating are the judges who are part of the 3-judge panel and the lawyers. You can have other people witness it, but their microphones, if you will, are muted, so they couldn't interrupt, they couldn't make a comment, but they can see it. The same as if they came to the courtroom and witnessed an argument live.
Do you see any process changes you would like to see made at the appeals court level? Some candidates have come into this forum and said, yes, I'm studying the process of this and we can do it better.
I think that there's probably some adjustments that could be made logistically, theoretically. Logistically, it may be difficult to make the process changes. For example, on any given 3-judge panel, you may have, and that's how the Court of Appeals sits, and judges of three panels of 3. On any given panel, you may have 3 domestic law experts dealing with really detailed criminal constitutional issues. So I think maybe logistically there may be some opportunities to at least put someone on, at least one person on that panel that maybe has some expertise in that field, sort of as some guidance to the other judges. Everybody gets their say, obviously, but I think there may be some opportunities for that. And I think for the most part, even with the random selection, it normally works out to where you have a pretty broad example of experiences to pull from as a panel. So it's not always an issue, but I have seen times when it may have been an issue.
20 seconds. Your last address to our voters for Jeff Carpenter for Court of Appeals.
I hope that you will, the voters of North Carolina will take some time to do some research. You can find out more about me at my website, electjeffcarpenter.com. You can find me on Facebook. An educated voter and an informed voter is the best voter. So I would encourage you all to do your homework and learn about every candidate that's on the ballot, not just me, but especially me. Do your homework and make an educated vote.
Thanks, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Young, final word.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. The folks in your audience can learn more about me at keepjudgeyoung.com. There's plenty of biographical information there, endorsements as well. And I think it will give you a nice insight into who I am, what I've done over the course of my career, and where I stand philosophically and morally as well.
I can say the judges do have, and the candidates for judicial office do have nice websites, very informative, part of my research.